I'm Michael Fisher, craft beer enthusiast and industry professional. I'm on a journey to find some people whose professions or hobbies revolve around the fermentation of malt and hops. We're going to dive into their passions and share some conversations over their favorite brews. So join me as I bring the brew to you. Welcome to the next round of Brew To You. I'm your host, Michael Fisher. We are here on location at Lizardville, craft beer store and whiskey bar in Bedford Heights, Ohio, the original location. I'm actually here with one of their owners, John Lane, who's also in charge of all of their beverage buying, particularly interested on this show in the craft beer. John, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
Tell us about how you got involved or into your kind of spot in the world with craft beer.
When I first started, which I just celebrated 30 years this past August, I was a vodka and tonic drinker. I know that sounds funny, but I never liked, I guess I'm allowed to say it, the yellow fizzy stuff.
Sure.
But being a poli-sci and history major at John Carroll, I picked up a book by Michael Jackson and started reading about all these beers from around the world, and I was on my way from there.
When you start to kind of analyze the flavors that are breaking down, as opposed to just like that initial, like, oh, I'm not sure I like this, but when you start to look for the chocolate and the oatmeal and the cinnamon and different things in the beers, that it really kind of opens you up to appreciate a little bit more. Well, enough talking about how you got into beer. Let's have a beer and talk about it.
Okay. Oh, an opener. You got one?
I don't.
Well, being the professional that I am, Michael.
Always prepared.
Always prepared, yeah. So from a small little brewery outside of Munich in a little town called Aing, this is Ainger Brauweiss, which is their Hefeweizen. Just full of banana and clove, open fermentation.
It's the gold standard.
Great with a nice big German pretzel and some Weisswurst. Early in the morning, 10 o'clock, when the shift workers take a little break, they have their Weisswurst and they have a Brauweiss with it.
It's really good. It's interesting too. We think of beer and it's been so long since we've been in craft beer and it's coming along. The United States is so in its infancy by comparison to Europe.
I mean, this is fourth or fifth generation, young Franz Inselkammer. I knew his father. Here in this country, if we have a, Sierra Nevada, probably one of the oldest one, around 36, 37 years old, it'll be interesting to see if that's generational.
Yeah.
I certainly won't see it. You might see it, Michael.
Yeah. We're actually sitting in the actual room of the original Winking Lizard Tavern.
Yes, we are.
Which is now Lizardville. So just guessing you're a born and bred Cleveland guy?
No, actually went to grade school in Akron, and then my dad got transferred, so we ended up in a little town called Carlisle, Pennsylvania, home of the Army War College and Jim Thorpe, and ended up going to John Carroll. So went to ROTC, met my wife, got married, and was in the Army from 82 to 88. So we ended up moving back to Cleveland, and actually my brother and sister-in-law owned the Winking Lizard at the time. It was right here.
Yeah.
And they were looking to open a second location in Twinsburg, and my sister-in-law, who I knew pretty well, Mo Callum, she poked my partner now, Jim Callum, and said, there's your guy to open your second restaurant. We opened in Twinsburg in 1989, and I've been here ever since. So this past August was my 30-year anniversary.
And 35 for the Lizard?
35 for the Lizard. So really paying homage, Edmund Fitz is my favorite Great Lakes beer. And they're celebrating their 30-year anniversary, so how apropos. So cheers to that.
Indeed.
I just love the roasted malts, little coffee-like flavors. And I don't know, so weird because to me it's almost kind of close to a stout, but you can tell the body for sure is not there on what you would consider a stout, but certainly
that's always
the flavor.
Been one of the, I don't know, the questions, and I feel like you ask 100 brewers, you get 100 answers. What's the difference between a stout and a porter? Originally it was, you had porters, and then you had stout porters, which is basically heavy, as opposed to, we look at everything now as like Budweiser and then Bud Light. It kind of went the other way.
But at the end of the day, I think we get so fixated sometimes on style.
Oh yeah.
And part of me says we should. That you know, if you go to these generational breweries, they're going to be standard bearers on that, right? And say, oh no, this is the way it should be. But part of me says, hey, let's just enjoy it for what it is, right?
So in the third beer, we've kind of a theme with the beers that we've got today is they've all had a special place. So Eying was the first brewery you ever visited. Great Lakes is obviously the big guy in Ohio, the staple, the rock as far as craft beer in Ohio. And I was remiss in your original introduction. I should have referred to you as Sir John Lane, as you've been knighted in Belgium. And I think this beer in particular has a special part in that.
Belgium has a very special place in my heart. You go to Belgium, you can get hoppy beers, you can get big beers, you can get little beers, lower in alcohol, all those good things. And so I really got appreciation for Belgian beer. And they have a program over there which I think is just so unique and so cool. And it's run by the Belgian brewers, the mash staff. These family breweries come together and they knight people within the country who are helping to perpetuate the Belgian beer culture because it's such a huge export for them, and they're known for that in the beer circles. And you know, when I was there, the American ambassador was there, the ambassador from Japan was there, and there's people from all over the world that are knighted. And so 6 years I was knighted, and it was probably the pinnacle of my career.
Well, cheers.
Cheers. So, I guess I'll let the secret's been out for a while, but this is my favorite beer in the world. It's so unique for the Trappist. Orval is one of the Trappist beers. Technically, they call it a Belgian Pale Ale. Again, we get wrapped up in styles.
Sure.
But out of all the Trappist breweries, I don't know many that are using American hops, and this uses American hops. Goes through 3 different fermentations. They use some Brettanomyces. It's just so complex and gives you so many different flavors.
I tend to not be a big Belgian beer guy, kind of like IPAs aren't necessarily and Belgians aren't, but this is one, and actually in a dual single, formerly Duvel Green, and I was excited to see them finally put that in a can.
Yeah, they're about half the size of Great Lakes Brewing, and they export all over the world, and I just think the beer is absolutely brilliant.
So we have another beer that I think is pretty high on your list of special beers.
This is still a Nacht. Brewer by the name of Chris Hertelier owns it. He's not only a brewer, he's an architect and he's a painter. Beautiful, beautiful paintings. He just brews, they're very high in alcohol, but tons of flavor, and he likes to use candy sugar to boost up the alcohol.
With the comment of him being an artist, I assume he's responsible for the labels?
Yes, and they're all kind of funky labels. When you go to take a tour, he wears a huge yellow bow tie. I mean, it's this big, and a jacket and red shoes. He's also a bicyclist, an avid bicyclist. So if you want to go visit his brewery, you can only visit it on Sundays. For English tours, it's Sunday afternoon. and I think it's at 3 o'clock. And if you're not there at 3 o'clock, forget it.
Yeah. See you next Sunday.
The epitome of a small family brewery with just a huge reputation, and just wonderful beers.
It's got a real nice fruity character on the nose. Yeah. But it's fun. It makes it different. It's so, when you think of, well, I would assume most people watching this think of craft beer. When you think of like what beer tastes like, this isn't exactly what you think. A beautiful, brilliant example of what beer can be. We always end every episode of Brew To You with kind of the weird beer or the neat beer question. And so this one for me, for you, is the guy from the beers from all over the world, knighted in Belgium by the Brewers Mash Staff. What's your lawnmower beer? What beer do you drink in the middle of July after you got done mowing your grass?
It's Dogfish Head Sea Quench. We're just selling a mountain of this. And in the summertime, I've always got a case or two around at home. And actually, my wife, who was a Miller Lite drinker, will actually drink one of these as well.
Yeah, my wife actually is a sour fan, and this is also from Dogfish. This is one of her favorites, but Festina Pesh is one that she joneses for. Well, cheers to you, sir. I appreciate it. Let's give her a taste.
I love that lime. It comes out. It's really refreshing.
It's really what brings it together too. Well, excellent. I appreciate it. As we wrap up here, I think maybe the world might want to know where you can find. We said there's 18 Winking Lizards out there, but where is it that you can find a Winking Lizard and drink some of these great beers?
So we've got 3 locations in Columbus. We've got a couple in Canton. We go to Akron. We get into Cleveland, Cuyahoga County. We have 7 locations, and you go all the way out to Avon, to Lorain County, and then out in Lake County and Mentor. So you can pretty much find us northeast Ohio down to Columbus.
Well, excellent. That pretty much wraps up this round of Brew To You. I'm your host, Michael Fisher. I really want to thank Sir John Lane for being our guest. Thank the Winking Lizard and Lizardville specifically for letting us take up some space here. And we'll catch you on the next round of Brew To You.